Hello, my name is Austin Derrickson, and today I'll be showing you the gameplay for a map I'm making in Trenchburg for Quake. Map's name is Project Icepick, and this video is just going to be going through the gameplay. So at first, there's this small room where they spawn in. Just some basic movement, just to remind them of how to move. There's some ramps that they can test jumping on. There's a little button that if they are able to kind of parkour their way over here, touch the button, this door will open up and there's a little shrine back here. So just getting them familiar with movement, nothing too intense with combat. And then in order to get out of this area, they need to jump on these boxes and they fall down. So then over here, they get their first enemy interaction just with one generic enforcer. And this is just to introduce them by themselves. Since they just were reminded of movement, I don't want to give them anything too intense. So if we go on to the next area, we have this little open window just to kind of distract them almost. Since this trigger will activate and activate these two enemies that'll come for the player once they see them, or if they go too far, or if they walk into this trigger, it'll activate these enemies and they'll start attacking the player. So it's just two basic enemies just to increase the intensity and pace from the previous version of just having one enemy. And then this trigger here will activate a dog right here just to introduce the dog and just give them some variety now that they've kind of become a little bit more intimate with this basic enforcer character. So this next area introduces verticality for the player. Since every enemy beforehand has been on the same eye level, I wanted to introduce some different environments that the player will have to face enemies in. So we have these two explosion boxes just in case, since the player will be here and have to shoot upward. Since there's an enemy right here that's going to nestle in between those boxes, the hope is that they'll shoot them and kind of put two and two together. Oh, that's an explosive box. If I shoot those, they explode. So in order to progress this area, since this is locked, they need to go down here. There's just one basic enemy just to give them something to do. Then these two triggers right here, 1 and 2, activate these doors on the side. So these little walls will come down and these enemies inside will be activated. But once they pass through, they'll try to grab the key, have to face those enemies, and kill them obviously. And then once they have the key, they can go back to this area, touch this door, it unlocks. There's a little lift in here that'll activate once they get on top. They can come up. And then this little area right here, since it's nice and open, we'll just create some presence and make the player a little bit tense, since they just were introduced to these kind of claustrophobic areas where it's a hall. Okay, now that's wide open. Okay, now it's a claustrophobic hall, and I'm suddenly introduced to 3 enemies at a time. So now going back here, they're even in this like confined elevator. So going in this small elevator, coming up, and then seeing this wide open area is just to create some just tenseness for the player, so that if they enter this trigger, that for these enemies will come out and kind of jump on the player just to keep them on their toes. Then if we go past this area, they're introduced to their nail gun. So this new weapon, which offers more range, which is good for this next area, since you can see this enemy right here from this doorway, just so if they want to try to use the new weapon that they just got, they can without having any consequences, since they are able to shoot from right here all the way up here. So if they click this button, this small lift will slowly go up, and these triggers will activate the different enemies here. And after they kill these basic enemies right here, this trigger will activate a wizard up here that will introduce it by itself, so the player's not having to deal with these 3 enemies and then having to deal with a new enemy that they don't quite understand. So good isolation here. If we go to the next part, just reinforcing some of the basic enemies, nothing too intense. These grunts go down in like 2 shots, where the enforcers go down in, I think, in about 5. So nothing that they haven't seen before or dealt with, especially since the pace before this area was pretty intense, and then kind of ranked it up with this with these 3 enemies, slowed it down with this 1 enemy, and now kind of picking up the pace again and slowly getting more intense. And this helps for the next area, where if they take too much damage, they can replenish their nails, their shotgun shells, their health, and go over here, which they have a variety of the enemies they've already met, and just kind of putting everything together. So there's these two enemies, two wizards right here, just to reinforce the enemy that they just had. A regular grunt, two Rottweilers, one right there and one right here, and two enforcers. Just kind of pairing them up and reinforcing that for the player. And after they defeat these enemies, they can look to this cage over here, and there's this demon, I believe it's called a fiend. And obviously it can't hurt them since they're in a cage. But if they kill the fiend and they go to this wall, this door will open up right here, and they're able to grab the super shotgun. So we'll go to the next part where they can replenish their health and their ammo. And come over here, and instead of all these doors, because we've had a lot of these doors, I wanted to introduce a new kind of entry point for the player using these boxes, kind of looping back to the beginning where you had to jump on the boxes. So okay, well, the only way I can go is up here. So once they enter this area, there's a door inside here that will come down and close on the player, so they're kind of locked in. And they'll walk across this, and there's a demon right here that is triggered by this second trigger. So this trigger activates the enemy, and this trigger closes the door behind them. So they won't have much time to react to the demon, and they'll be kind of locked in this area. And then if they decide to go down and to run away from the enemy, they can't get back up, so they're kind of forced into this interaction with the demon. And then after we kill that demon, we have this large open area that has a few wizards and a few grunts in it. Nothing too intense, I just wanted to introduce more interesting gameplay since we had a really intense moment outside before, and then kind of giving them these rewards, cooling it down with this little smaller areas, increasing it with just one enemy since they saw him before, and they don't really know how to deal with it yet, so introducing that to them, bringing them out here again, and then increasing the intensity and pacing once again with enemies they've already seen and dealt with. So after they get down here, I wanted to kind of put some incentive into this lava pit. So I have an invulnerability and a armor 2, as well as just some basic enemies, just to add some interest to this level. And they can even cheese the enemies technically if they use the nail gun from this area, just to kind of make them feel smart for being able to, oh well, I have this long range weapon that I used before, so let me use it now. And then rewarding them obviously for trying to move into the little rock area with some power-ups and items. Then if we go in here, we have these two areas. We have a winding stairway and a open lava area. My favorite is the stairway, but I'll start with this area. So if they decide to go into this area first, we have some enemies for flanking and ambushing. They're always hiding behind here, so no matter which way they go, there's always going to be an enemy. We have some Rottweilers and more enforcers back here. And this area right here is a hidden wall, and if we go to the stairs and decide to go down the stairs, so these cool stairs that have kind of these demonic and almost ritualistic decor, we decide to go down, and we have two Rottweilers, just nothing new. And then open this door, we see this little demon that we met before, praying. We also have the lightning gun, and this trigger will awaken the demon, so if they can try to sneak up on it and grab the gun before the demon awakes, then they'll be able to grab the gun and finish it pretty easily, which is a reward for not immediately shooting the demon at the beginning. So once they kill the demon, there's this just little passageway to the right. They can pick up this armor, and this lift will take them up here. It'll go back down after a certain amount of time, so they're not just stuck up here and in case they accidentally, ran off or something. So it has some more cells, some health, and some munitions, and then this is an imaginary wall, or illusionary wall, I believe it's called, that they can walk through. So finally, we have this huge lift that will fall down very quickly in comparison to all the others, and we're introduced to the chandelier. So that's really as far as gameplay goes. I tried to introduce a lot of platforming and tried to introduce some of the trigger work with Quake, since I found that really interesting. But yeah, so this is kind of like the final boss, the Shambler, and this is the end level trigger. So that was really it for my gameplay. kind of a long video, but there's a lot to discuss and go over since it's a pretty long map for Quake. But thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.